Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Sling of Ages podcast on YouTube. Here is another bonus episode from 2015. I interviewed Michael Sherwood via phone. We talked about Toto XIV, as well as his work with Steve Porcaro and his brother, the great Billy Sherwood, who's in Yes. Mike died a few years ago at the age of 60. It's kind of unexpected. He was a wonderful person, a great musician, and a wonderful person to interview. So again, this is audio quality. There's no video to it, but this is one from my archives, which I thought I'd share. Here's Mike Sherwood. Important piece. Thanks for taking the time for this. I really appreciate it. Why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your musical upbringing, the background?
My grandparents started out in the vaudeville circuit back in the 20s. Bob and Gail Sherwood, uh, kind of from the Indiana area, and then my father in 19. He was born in 1914. My father started out playing banjo in the lobby when he was about 9, and by the time he was in his late 20s, he was Bing Crosby's guitar player.
Wow.
Replaced Eddie Lang. And then he married Judy Garland's sister, Virginia Gum, and ended up at MGM as a session musician. And then in the 40s, he became a big band leader, and had a lot of musicians that started out in his big band, like Sid Sims. Marty Page was his piano player at one point. So he had a whole life before I was even conceived, and he was quite a bit older than my mother. He settled down in Las Vegas. He married my mom. He was in the film Pal Joey.
Wow.
Sinatra. He was the band leader. He was also the orchestra leader for Judy Garland, but he worked with Frank. And he was in Pal Joey. My mom was a Broadway dancer, and she was 20 years younger. She was dancing in the Broadway version of Pal Joey in the mid-50s. My dad was doing the film, and they met at a place called, what was it, Chili's, which is where the old Sinatra crowd used to hang out.
Okay.
So they met there and got together and settled in Vegas in 1961, where I spent my life all the way through school until I was about 18. So I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, with both of my folks working the main room and lounge circuit in Vegas back when it was still kind of swinging, and it was kind of mob ran. It was before whatever the hell it is now, which is some sort of weird Power Rangers concert with porno. I don't know what the hell Vegas is anymore right now. I can't. It's unrecognizable. But yeah, it was a great time to grow up there, and you can see that picture of me and Sammy Davis in my profile. That was backstage at Bally's later in life, but the whole Rat Pack crowd and Milton Berle and people like that, and Nat King Cole. I mean, this was all my living room growing up.
So you grew up in Vegas for the most part, so you were 18. Then after that, it was LA?
I got a gig when I was 18. I went out with Tony Orlando, and I got the job. My dad just, the band leader knew my father and said, "Can he play?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "All right." He's got the job. So I did. I sight unseen, no audition, just on my dad's word. I got the gig. I came out to LA, found out the bass player was Carol Kay, which is very wow, and did a few shows with Carol, and then she was replaced by Jose Moreno. So I started out. I left the nest. I went out with Tony, and then when I came back, I had put this group together, Logic, with Jimmy Hahn. Anyway, the two of us put this group together, and that group we did the Sahara Hotel circuit for a while, and we came back to Vegas after some shows in '79. We came back to Vegas, and a manager heard us, a friend of a friend heard us, and said he wanted to invest, and he moved us all to LA. So the group Logic, we all moved out here together in 1980.
So was with the first version, was that the only version of Logic with Jimmy Hahn and your brother and Guy Allison?
My brother was when Logic was formed. Logic was formed originally in 1977.
Okay, 77.
And that was just me and Gary Starnes, Jimmy Hahn, and Mark Fletcher on bass. And then by the time we moved out here, we were still struggling and doing this and that. And at some point, I don't remember exactly why, but Mark left the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy was 16, and he was a drummer. But I had suggested that he start playing a little bass and try and get some notes involved in what he was doing. And he ended up being a pretty naturally talented bassist. So at 16 years old, Billy joined Logic.
Wow.
He was 16. And we were rehearsing, and our manager, Barry, God, he's such a great guy. I think I posted a photo of him. He's an awesome guy.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Morgan, he said, if you guys are going to be professional, you need to work where the big boys work. So he booked us into Andy Leeds rehearsal hall.
Oh, wow.
This was after we had done a lot of showcasing, and we'd worked with Joe Ciccarelli, and we'd been all over the place, and so anyway, we were working at Leeds, and this was right after Toto had swept the Grammys with Toto XIV. And sure enough, one of our tech guys, sound guys, came in and goes, some guy with glasses out here thinks you're really good. And it was Jeff. And Jeff came in and he listened and he goes, do you mind if I go get the cats? I'm like, so okay. So he went and he grabbed Paige and Steve and Luke and everybody, and they all just came in and we played a couple tunes for them. And I guess they saw a little bit of themselves in us, because we were a little younger than them, but we had that same sort of spirit, and we were doing the same kind of music that they liked. And next thing you know, David took us under his wing and put us up in the house just above the manor, where the original manor. And he put us up in a place, we called it the Lodge, because it was Logic, and it was up above. And, Paige used to make fun, because you guys come down from the hill, come down to the studio, come down from on high, get down here, got work to do. But, so Paige got us a deal on A&M, and Steve Porcaro and David they produced our first record, our only record, which I think went plywood. Anyway, the little joke there. They kind of just took us under their wing and held us up to the light. And we did our first record on A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And then the band does what all great bands do, broke up. So Billy went on to join Yes later in life. And I forged a writing relationship with Steve Porcaro that flourishes to this day, which we can talk about a little later, but we're sitting on a mountain of music for the solo stuff. But we've been writing for 12 or 20 years, and we've had a song covered by Michael Jackson and all that stuff. But Steve and I sort of took to each other's, sensibility-wise, as far as writers. He liked my sense of melody and my harmonic vocabulary. Sort of, we had a kinship there.
Well, and that's
I'd say the same for Dave, but Steve and I very much so. So that was that. Billy kind of went off into Yes Land, and Jimmy Hahn and I ended up in groups like Air Supply, and then I ended up working with Lisa Loeb and blah, 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 all over the place. However, after Logic broke up, they did the Fahrenheit record.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to come in to do some singing, and I sang on Leah until the end. I did backing vocals on those two, which was just a thrill. And I should back up a little bit. Before the Logic album, we were looking to replace. We had a singer, a guy that sang all the high parts, and we weren't having trouble with him. He had some problems, so we asked Joseph Williams, this guy, to join Logic, and he gracefully declined. He had just done his first solo album,
right?
Blue record. I think it's just called Joseph Williams.
Joseph Williams.
We were stupid to even ask him. It's like he just did all this work to put together the solo record, and then we had the balls to go, okay, forget about that. Come with us. Like, yeah, right. So anyway, he was very nice about it, though. He said, no, thank you. Appreciate the offer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went on and did the Logic thing. Anyway, cut to a couple years later, Toto asks him to join, and he joins.
So can I ask you,
Working on Fahrenheit.
can I ask a few questions about Logic though, before we go on to Toto?
See, yeah, we had to be clever about it and spell it wrong. Kind of dumb, but we were kids, we didn't know. LODGIC.
Yeah, and that,
What a great word to misspell, huh?
well, it's an interesting album too because I've heard about it for years and I never had a copy of it. Then I saw one of the Inside Music Cast correspondents who I got to know over Facebook mentioned it, and I found obviously I found a used copy in Amazon, and of course listened to it. And it's the production is wonderful. The playing is fantastic, but it seems to me very contemporary in terms of what we hear today.
Yeah, I mean, the Logic stuff, I gotta be honest with you, I was already writing with Steve,
Okay.
and I was writing with another gentleman named Julius Robinson, so a lot of my stuff didn't make it to the, even though Logic was my band, my brother had become a dominating force in the band by the time he'd done the record. And it wasn't like he was pushing me out, it just, his stuff was more, Logic was more somewhere between Yes and Genesis and the Police kind of a thing. So I went in there and I did my thing and I sang on the few things I did and co-wrote. I wasn't I always have disagreements with David and Steve. They defend the record more than I do. For me, the record is, I felt that I was a little, I hadn't found my voice yet. I mean, maybe Billy and Guy and Jimmy were all the dominant forces on that record because they were really aggressive songwriters at the time. My stuff was like the stuff that I was interested in was the stuff that I was doing with Steve and this other guy Julius. So I didn't feel like my work was really being reflected in that group so much. So when I listen back to that record, it's a little bit. It's a little hard for me to listen to. But the production is outstanding. But I found it to be somewhat derivative and a little scattered. But everything worked out. Billy ended up. Billy wanted. What's funny about it is that record had a lot of progressive
elements to it.
intentions, and by the time we got a deal and got it released, all of a sudden we put the ball in the field and then someone moved the field. It was like all of a sudden everything was new wave and heavy metal and nobody wanted to know about it. We were passe like a week after the thing was released.
Yeah, bands that could play well and had two keyboardists became less and less popular.
I mean, we were just passe overnight, which was a drag. So we tried to hang on a little bit. Great with Donnie, bless his soul, stepped up and helped us reform with Jody Cortez on drums.
Oh, really?
We had a different name. I don't even remember what we called ourselves at the time. We had a bunch of different names, but finally we just gave up. And Billy and Guy grabbed Mark Williams and Bruce Gowdy and formed a group called World Trade.
Right.
And then Jimmy Hahn and I went off with, and Guy, all went off and toured with Air Supply of all groups. And I ended up writing like 10 tunes with Graham Russell. Because, I can spin a ballad, the best one. So ended up doing that, and that was a lot of fun.
But in terms of your career,
to be a fun group to tour with because the audience was all beautiful women and their daughters. So.
But in terms of your career, was your intent at that point to focus more on the songwriting aspect, touring musician? Okay.
Yeah, songwriting was interesting me the most. Steve and I had written this song for Michael Jackson called For All Time.
That's one of the bonus. That's one of the bonus CDs, I think, or.
Well, it was written originally for the Dangerous album.
Okay.
And in the 11th, he wanted another sort of human nature thing, and he called up Stevie. And Steve said, I want you to be my guy on this. And I said, yeah, man, I got it. So we went in there and we did it.
Okay.
And in the 11th hour, this kid, Ryan White, I want to say, it was a kid that had died from a blood transfusion in the early days.
Right, I remember that.
And Michael wrote this beautiful song for him called Gone Too Soon, and that ended up taking the slot, the ballad slot. So our song got shelved. We then took it over to Lionel Richie, who did a version of it, but I never heard it.
Okay.
But I understand that Nathan and they did a nice take on that, but it kind of languished, just kind of there. But it was enough to get me in the game. Got me a deal with Warner Chappell, and when I was with Air Supply, they knew I'd written for Michael Jackson, so I was welcome to do some writing with Graham. We ended up writing 10 to 12 things over a period of three records. So I was in it to write. I was touring with Air Supply as a keyboardist, but my main interest was to get up there and get some writing in there. That's what I was interested in. Anyway, cut to 2007, the phone rings. Steve calls me, says, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Should I be?" He goes, "Yeah, definitely." So Michael just called. He wants to finish For All Time and put it on Thriller 25. I'm like, holy shit. That old thing? And of course, as a lyricist, I'm listening to it and I'm going, oh, God. Oh man, it's so much better than that now. Can you ask Michael if I can take another stab at the verses, And Michael's like, no, he likes it just the way it is.
So it was a completed song in terms of the lyrics and the music. You didn't add anything to it in 2007.
No, we went back in and he added some orchestra and he did some stuff. And, those octaves on the bridge, we needed him to sing, and he was kind of dragging his feet. So I think we had Joe Williams come in there and do a little ghost singing, possibly, if I remember correctly. But we had taken it a little further.
Mm-hmm.
But that thing was hanging around for years. The last thing I expected was to be on Thriller.
That's amazing. Because I had a vinyl copy of it.
Sadly, he had passed after that. Steve and I we had 5 things that we were working on for Michael's next project. We were excited to work with him again.
Mm-hmm.
And then he passed away, so it was great.
Jeez, yeah, because I had the original vinyl copy of Thriller. I never had it on CD, so I finally bought the reissue on CD and got that version, which is really neat. So let's flash.
Well, you never know. You just gotta hang in there, man. I did not expect that song to see the light of day.
So was that one of your first collaborations with Steve Porcaro?
We had done a couple things prior to that. A song called Out of Nowhere, and then a thing called Astor Place. I mean, we were just chipping away, kind of finding our groove together.
Mm-hmm.
But he called me in to work on the Michael thing, and that was exciting. He said, "Listen, I got an opportunity for Michael, and why don't you come over here and be the other guy?" Wow, I just couldn't believe it. So I went over there, and Steve and I started chipping away. I just thought of something. It's just a little tangent, but I have a very strong memory of working with Steve at the Manor on this song For All Time, and Fahrenheit had come out, and Jeffrey walked in with a Fahrenheit T-shirt, and I went, love your shirt. He goes, "Oh yeah, man." I go, "Yeah, man." So I'm singing on there. He goes, "I know." I go, "Yeah, man. Where do I get me one of those?" He goes, "This?" And he just reached as quick as I said it. He just pulled his shirt off and handed it to me.
Wow.
And the old saying, the guy would give you the shirt off his back.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. Jeff gave me the shirt off his back, and he was like, and Steve, of course, goes, "Jeffrey, shirt back on him. Yeah, that's one."
That's amazing.
Steve never got me one, but that's beside the point. But just remember. Anyway, so we had written that song For All Time, and then we just kept going. Steve left Toto.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to get more into songwriting and scoring and this and that, and we became a songwriting team, and we have a mountain of music right now.
So in terms of the songwriting process with Steve, since you're both in LA, you do it same room, sit files back and forth.
I would. It started out. I would just go down there and listen to what he's got going, and A lot of times I would just say, give me, why don't you mumble whatever lyrics and just mumble some stuff and give me a version with that, and then give me a version that's instrumental, but play the melody you want if you have a melody idea. Sometimes I would have the melody idea, but quite often he would, and he would I said, just give me an instrumental version where the melody is in there real subtle on a piano or a Rhodes or something that could follow it along and stick to it. And then give me a version with you mumbling so I can respond to some of your instincts as far as syllables and sounds and meanings. And then we just started doing it that way. And we just kept going with that process, which is, he'll start something and hand it off to me with his mumbles and his melodies, and then I'll develop on that and I'll throw it back to him, and and then we'll just keep chipping away at it. And we've been doing it that way for 20 years. And telling you, man, we've got so much material, and Mike's playing all over it. And even when Mike couldn't play anymore, he was dictating the notes to us, singing us the notes. So, yeah, the world is not the last of Mike. So that's,
And I know for years.
I love it. And I push Steve constantly. I call him every day. What are we doing today? What are we doing? Let's go. He's like, just keep bugging me, keep bugging me, keep bugging me. I go, I will. I will.
I believe for years there was talk and comments about the potential Porcaro Brothers CD. I know they had that one single with Joe singing lead on it a while ago, but we were always hoping that would develop. And then of course Steve became more and more involved with the soundtracks, and yes, and we're hoping again that will lead to a project. So when I heard that he would have 2 songs on Toto 14, which both are brilliant. Though Ben is one of my favorite Toto songs, and it's just lyrically it's amazing, but the music is something so unlike Toto, but so fitting. It's a shame that we don't get that on all the copies here in America. I was really intrigued by that.
11th hour thing. I got to just real quickly.
Sure.
Both of those songs of Steve's. I mean, those are both from the solo project. I mean, those songs had no designs on being Toto songs.
Wow. Okay.
Until Toto heard them and said, well, of course they said, Steve, what do you got? We need you, because Steve is like the George Harrison of Toto. When he shows up, he's got to bring his big guns. That's why George Harrison's songwriting was so strong, because he only had that one opportunity per record. So maybe he had about 100 songs, but he had to pick the best damn one to go up against Lennon McCartney. And it's the same for Steve. So Steve picked the little things which I didn't work on. I helped produce the demo with another singer, and I changed one line in the bridge just because it bugged me. But that didn't make me a writer on it. He wrote that with Allie Willis.
Okay.
But that's a great song, and what I did do, and then Ben was something. He gave me the title, and he gave me a couple of lines. He was thinking about his brother, and then I pretty much crafted that lyric from Tip's Tale. I humbly offer that it's probably my finest moment as a lyricist, but I can't tell.
It's wonderful
to make that decision. But to me, for my personal, as a writer, I'm the most proud of that lyric of anything I've ever penned, because I just think because it's so stark and sparse, that the lyric really jumps out at you. And I think I took it to a universal place, and I'm very proud of it. And I still maintain that original thought that Steve had about physical therapy. And I rolled in images of, just everything I could. I just tried to give it a universal message, something more universal, without being too preachy. That was the dance. Anyway, both of those songs were poached from the solo project that we've been working on, and they're 2 of the best ones. But I was singing Ben on the solo album.
Really?
Jamie Kimmett was singing Little Things on the solo album. And luckily, one of my smartest moves was I said, Steve, if you think you can take a stab at it, you really should take a stab at singing as much as you can on your solo album. It's a Steve Porcaro album. You should be singing, unless it's something that's way out of your range. We want to bring in Bill Champlin or Joseph, or you want me to sing it or whatever. But if you can sing it, you should sing it. So you really should take a stab at Little Things, and you should take a stab at Ben.
I mean, there's such
kind of reluctantly did, and wow, lucky.
I mean, there's such a intimacy, and it just seems to fit his voice, especially Ben, so well.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised. Wow.
He's starting to get a lot more. He's a lot more confident about his singing now. I mean, I never thought I'd see him singing "It's a Feeling" on stage, but there he was on the last tour. So I think we may. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he sang a full tune on this round of touring. But I have no way of knowing. But he's getting very confident about his voice.
That's really good to hear.
It's great.
In terms of the technical side of the writing, you said Steve usually has he's working on the track. Are you writing lyrics to a tape, or I mean,
sequence running, depending on nowadays it's in Logic in the Logic program, but back in the day it was the little MC5s, whatever. But he would have his little thing going, one of these little, and he'd have a couple little melodic ideas, and then probably a title. And then I would, back in the day it would be a cassette, but yeah, you would always start out with it, Steve has such a strong musical signature, which is something that I admire about him so much. I mean, it's like Steely Dan. When you hear it, you know exactly what it is. And Steve has that.
Right.
People call it that human nature thing, or whatever you want to call it. It's an intangible, but it's very real, and it's very unique. So I'm sorry, I'm going to let that go. I don't know what's wrong with that. He's got his ways. They call him the yaddas, when Steve does his yada yada yaddas, which is basically all that synthesizer stuff bouncing around, the stereo imagery and all that stuff. That, when you hear Page playing the meat and potatoes, pianos and organs, but all of the delicious
accents and
it's Steve, So when Steve's working by himself, he starts with that. Okay, that Steve Porcaro thing, man. And every song we do has that. Every one of them. It's unavoidable. It's just who he is.
It's really interesting because you didn't realize how much was missing until he was gone, really, after the seventh one.
Yes.
And that was probably the biggest change, yeah. And now you hear it again.
He hasn't sung anything on Toto Records since Toto 4.
That's amazing.
That's a long stretch. But I couldn't be more pleased because the fact that he took that leap and that he injected what we've been doing into the Toto thing is now raising the awareness, because this might be the last Toto record. I think it's a perfect way to queue up a long-awaited Porcaro project. I mean, it's time. And we've got Mike on there. I mean, we all need dreams, and Steve he kind of twitches a little bit when I mention this because it sounds a little bit what's the word? Just sort of forced. But I always thought, God, wouldn't it be great to pull up a 24 track and find a few loops of Jeffrey that we could use, along with some of these nice bass lines we have of Mike.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be fun to, maybe around the time the Band of Brothers project is coming together, to be able to have one tune that one thing that has all three of you guys sonically reunited. It's a great idea, but I just think he's worried that it might be a bit too contrived, and he really wants to do it. He likes to do things because the music is asking for it. So I don't know. It's a delicate thing right now, but I'm gonna reintroduce the idea after all the Toto hubbub has calmed down a little bit.
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
It's a fun idea.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. And we know that there's plenty of stuff around, I'm sure, that you can use.
Oh,
Yeah.
And Jeff, I mean, God, all you need is a nice little loop. Nowadays you just get a nice little Jeff loop and throw down a little of the Mikey bass, and Steve throw a few chords at it, let me run off and do my boil it in ammonia and do my thing, and then bring it back, and there it is, Porcaro Brothers reunited. So the point I was making is that I couldn't be more delighted that Steve is singing and that he's allowed him the very last line of the Little Things when he says, "That matters," and it's just his voice by itself. He really put himself out there. That is a very vulnerable, brave move, man.
Wow.
To just have it be just your voice dry like that right up in your face. The very last two words of Little Things. I just get chills. So I'm very happy that Steve has taken the lead within Toto. The awareness is being raised because we have so much material, and I just couldn't be more thrilled that Steve's, breaking on through.
I think that's fantastic, and looking forward to hearing what he has to put out in the future. Is there anything else that you're working on that you want to talk about?
Well, right now I'm working with a country guy, with my friend Tom Fletcher. And Trevor Lukather was involved. It's a guy's name's John Spicer, and he's a young guy, and it's sort of that modern country thing, but it's hip. I mean, the players, it's up at that really good level of LA sounding stuff. Kind of skirts the line between Nashville and Los Angeles.
Okay. And Fletcher's engineering it?
Tom Fletcher, is producer and engineer. And I did all the piano and organ and some background vocals, maybe a little Wurlitzer.
Okay, great.
This guy plays his ass off. There's a song called Pretty Good at Loving You. There's two videos out there. One of them is kind of a lyric video with words bouncing around, and the other one is a shot of us in the studio playing. You can put your eyes on that, ears on that. That's a pretty funky one.
Okay, I'll find that.
I believe in this record, and I believe in this kid, and as I'm not really a huge country fan, I think I've hit a point in my life where 145 sounds pretty pleasing. I like just I like hearing the D and then the G and then an A. Why not? So I mean, I've done the thing where I've done the heavy prog, and I've done the heavy pop, and I've done the hip sort of jazzy thing, and so I find myself really appreciating the simplicity of this guy's work, but it's certainly not dumbed down by any means. It's strong country pop. The guy is really, really a great player, like a real strong picker. Ridiculous.
I'm gonna find that.
John Spicer.
Pretty good loving.
Yeah, this record's called Crossing Over, and it's about to be released. And Trevor was involved in the sessions, and that's why I got to play with Trevor. And there's also Nico Olmos on bass, and Andy Olmos' son.
Okay.
Pat Chachia on drums, great little Italian drummer, just fierce. As a matter of fact, Paige asked me about drummers once, because you know any drummers because we're looking. And I was going to throw Patrick's name into the ring, but goddamn Fletcher would have never forgave me for the off of each other. So I had a decision to make. Maybe that one's a little more off the record there, President. So Lukather co-wrote one of the songs on that record, a song called By Now, I think he's a co-writer on it.
Okay.
But it was fun to work with him.
Fantastic.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we were in Capitol Studio A, Steve was next door doing the Beatles' 50th thing, and I have the photo of a snapshot of where Luke and Luke Jr., ran into each other on a session at Capitol where they just happened to be there at the same time. And one of them was in Studio B and the other was in Studio A. And they went, "Hey, Dad, hey, what are you doing here?" "I'm working Beatles." What do you do?" "I'm working with John Spicer." I'm standing there like, "This is beautiful."
Time flies.
And the Lukers. So I've been doing that, and pretty much just kind of mostly putting my energy into doing everything I can while Steve is busy with Justified and prepping for a very heavy Toto set list. I mean, the set list is going to be, this is the one, you know, they're digging deep on the set list. They're digging deep. They want to pull out some special stuff.
I'm looking
Because
forward to
they
it.
realize that this is the bookend. And maybe it isn't, but they definitely are. They're not just going through the motions of touring. Steve's got a lot on his plate to prepare for this tour. So my job is to spit shine up as many lyrics as we can, get everything in shape, so when he gets back from the Toto tour, that we're able to really push through this solo record in a timely fashion while the wind is still blowing our way.
That's very exciting.
That's my priority right now. This Steve Porcaro solo project and John Spicer. That's where I'm at.
Well, that's very exciting stuff, Mike. And if you can think of anything else that you want to mention to us, I'll certainly pass that along to the Something Else Reviews readers as well.
Okay, great, man.
And I'm going to work on this week and probably have something better ready for next week. If it's okay with you, I'll send you just a copy before I send it out.
Okay, I appreciate
Take
that.
a look at it. I really appreciate your time. It's just great hearing, as a long-time Toto fan, it's great to hear these stories about the collaborative process. It's great to hear about the writing process. And I've seen your name hundreds of times. I think the last time I saw your name was, or most recently was, when I got my white copy vinyl of the Up Against the Wall record that Billy did a few years ago. Yeah, Back Against the Wall. So I've seen your name hundreds of times, but it's a real honor to talk to you.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
I certainly appreciate your time, Mike.
Oh, buddy, anytime. And if you have any other questions, just, you got my text. Just reach out. If you have any, questions about anything we discussed and you want me to elaborate further, so don't hesitate, man. I appreciate the support. And yeah, man, I got to tell you, as much as I am working the edges of these projects, and as much as I am sort of part of the thing, I really am on some of these fan pages because I am a fan first, and always have been. I've been a total fan since day one, and these guys just changed my life in miraculous ways, and they continue to do so. So anything I can do to help get the word out for anything Toto or Porcaro related, I'm more than happy to do this. So.
Great, I appreciate it, Mike. Take care.
All right, Preston.
Bye.
Bye-bye.